For some strange reason, my phone won't rotate. I tried it. I don't know why. But we'll try it here and see if it'll rotate. That says rotate the device. Let's see if it'll work here. All right, am I sideways again? This thing is stupid. I don't know why it won't rotate. Let's hit that button. Nope, you don't want me to see that. You don't need that. All right, back to the other rotation. There we go. We are stuck in portrait mode again. Hey Jen, how you doing? Hold on one second, I have a really weird echo. I'm going to turn that off. Take these out. There we go. All right, does everybody else hear the echo or is it just me? We'll get everything all set here. Looking forward to another chill stream. Well, it's not starting out so chill, we'll put it that way. I think the echo is just me. Okay, that's good. I think it was the monitors I was using. It was really weird. All right. Yeah, that was a fun start. That's anyways, all right. We are stuck in portrait mode just like last time, but we'll deal with it. The joys of being a professional streamer. Tell you, it's pretty funny. Some people can make it look so easy, and for whatever reason, for me, streaming is not that. Anyways, so how's everybody doing tonight? I see a few people are watching. Hopefully we can get a bigger crowd going here. I'm going to lower that a little bit more. Get my... You're doing great. Been on the hunt for some old amplifiers. That sounds like fun. So like vintage type of amplifiers. That's cool. I don't really have any experience in that, unfortunately. Back in the day, I had an old AIWAI setup, and that's about the most vintage that I had. It really wasn't that great of a system. It had like a 5 CD changer and 2 speaker setup. I also had some cheapy, I think it was an RCA, but nothing too exciting. The Jeff Rowland mount. Now, see, now that's a whole lot better than what I was talking about. So I've actually never heard of a Jeff Rowland. I've heard of them, but I've never heard one. That'd be interesting. From 2000? That, depending on who you talk to and how young they are, they might say that's vintage. But anyways, I don't have anything that old. But that'd be cool. Hopefully you can find it. Be curious. Are you going to use that for speakers or is that headphones? Both? For a home theater? What are you going to use that Jeff Rowland for? A Model 10. I don't know what that is. I'm very limited in that. Hello, Mr. Josh. Is that your message for me being upside down? Sony eSpray. There you go. Yeah, that would definitely be more vintage than probably your Jeff Rowland. A friend of mine, Tim, back when we were teenagers, which, you know, was like 2 years ago, he had an old rack system, and it had, I think it was Pioneer, no, Panasonic, yeah, Pioneer. It was Pioneer, and it had a turntable, a big, huge tape deck, had a CD or laser disc, and a bunch of other things. Hey, Text Guide, how you doing tonight? So yeah, that's been a long time since I did anything like that. It's fun though to hook up and find. If you can find the right hookups and get everything all wired and playing, it can be really fun using older gear. So anyways, speaking of older gear, I got some newer gear. One thing that obviously is new to me is my Meze Empyrean, but I didn't bring them over. Hang on one second. Such a terrible YouTuber. All right. So anyways, the Empyrean. This is my newest headphone. And one thing that's kind of like my only quote unquote gripe is the cable. Now the stock cable's not bad, but when you undo it here, you'll notice that it does this number. And if there's one thing that's kind of, a frustration of mine is the stiff cables. And I like them to be a little bit softer and just able to move around. So I've been kind of looking for a different cable. Now, the nice thing about Meze is that they do use the mini XLR. So it makes it very easy to find replacements if you have Audeze cables or something along those lines. And so I did on my website, there's actually a review thoughts on cables. And one of the cables that's mentioned is the Corpe audio GraveDigger. And I really like this cable. It does default to an XLR. And it's got a rubber build on it. And still a little bit on the stiff side. Kind of feels like a microphone cable. Very nice sounding cable, but it's not the most pleasurable feeling, and it's not the most elegant looking. And so Opos Audio reached out to me a while ago and was like, hey, we're making our own cables now. Would you be interested in reviewing one? And I said, absolutely. What you got in mind? And they told me, they were going to call them the Flows, and that they were going to be 6N copper and all the specs. I'll put a link down below after the thing, and you can look it up on their website. And so they asked me what connector I wanted. Obviously, I went with the mini XLR connectors for my Meze. And then I was like, okay, well, I'm going to be getting an amplifier that is going to have 4.4. So I'm going to get a 4.4 connector. So that's what I got it terminated in. And it comes in two colors, red or black. Obviously, black would have been the easy choice for the Meze, but I was like, let's try something a little different. Let's go with a little color. So I got red. They do have several different lengths, and I went with the longer length. So I like a longer cable. I don't like to be attached to my desk. It seems like some cables are just too short, and you're like, if you move at all while you're listening to music, you're going to knock everything off your desk or pull it out or damage it. So I like to have a little extra length. So this one's 10 foot. I think you can get it in 5 foot also. And it comes with varying connectors. And these are actually, I don't know if you can see that, Reen connectors, which is a nice brand and very good quality. So it's got high quality connectors on both ends. And it's paracord, and it's really thin, and it just flows and just stays out of the way. I really like this cable. The other aspect of a cable is, does it change sonics? And no, it's not. It's not changing the sonics. And so that's a good thing. I really do enjoy that aspect of it, that it sounds exactly like the stock cable, which is a very good one. It may sound slightly better I'm cables are hard to judge because you don't have them in at the same time. You have to swap them and change them out, and so there's a pause in between, so you're not doing an exact swap. But the Opos cable, if my mind's not playing tricks on me, may have a little bit more clarity, and it may just be a little bit brighter sounding, which isn't a bad thing. I actually do. I like both cables, so I'm not complaining. What'd you say here? I own both the Blonde 03s, but I hate it because it has zero noise isolation and it doesn't go deep in my ear. It's shouty and ear-piercing sound. I'm curious about Moondrop Aria, how the noise isolation of the Aria is. Aria is a whole lot better noise isolation-wise, tech guide, as far as versus the Blonde 03. It inserts a lot farther and deeper, and in my opinion, it does a lot better of a job in that way. Also, I find them to be more comfortable. Nightmare to pull off a 20 kilogram amplifier off the desk. Yeah, that is one bonus. You could always get a super heavy amplifier. But if you have like a keyboard and you have other things on your desk like I do, you can pull all that stuff off with your cable. You're very welcome, Tech Guy. So anyways, getting back to the cable. So the Opos flow cables, I really do recommend them. I have enjoyed the time that I've had with them, and check them out. If you're going to purchase one, use my affiliate link at the end of it. There will be an affiliate link for Opos in the description that you can use to purchase these. They run anywhere, depending on what headphone you get. I think it's from somewhere in about $100 range to about anything up. Mezes are like 150. So just depends on what it is. Now you say 150 bucks, that's a lot of money. But if you are going to purchase a lot of the other brands, especially for some other higher end headphones, you're going to be in the 150 or higher range. So it's pretty competitive. It's not like it's super mega expensive. They also make RCA cables and a bunch of other things. So check out Opos Audio's flow cable. I really do enjoy that. We'll talk about cables here in a moment. I got some more questions. Wasn't expecting to see another video from you since you got the Empyrean. Hey, you know what? Live streams are fun, even if I'm terrible at it. So, we'll do that. Let's see. The kind of tips help as well. Foams with isolations a lot. That's true. With the blondes, foams do help a lot. Did find, depending on which foams you use, it can muddy it up a little bit and thicken it up a little too much, but it does kind of help take that sharpness away. Yeah, so the Hannah was not my favorite. The link is on my website for the review. And foams can help with isolation quite a bit. That's a very good point. Oh, by the way, I see that Chef Steve is here, and he made the comment that he only has problems with cables if he doesn't have them connected, because they don't have any sound. That's a very valid point. There is one solution to that, Bluetooth, but I'm not a fan of Bluetooth too much, so to each their own. But yes, he also mentioned that as long as it sounds good and looks good, that's the reason why you replace cables. Totally agree. So a couple other cables that you can get that I mentioned about the Opos ones, you can get something along the lines of Periap. But here's what I wanted to point out. So if you like the fabric paracord type of build, look how much thinner the Opos flow cable is compared to the Periap. And to me, the Periap just is a little stiff. I love Periap. They're durable, and I highly recommend them. They don't change the sound, and they don't impact the sonics, but they are quite stiff. Now they have a lot of connections and all that kind of stuff, but again, I like the Opos feel of it a lot better. And plus, I think the Opos one looks better. That's just me. How do you feel about the bespoke cables over mass manufactured? I actually like the boutique stuff better, and I like the handmade stuff. Sometimes I feel like you get a little bit more love that way, and that they just feel more durable. And a lot of times you get better warranties with them that way also. So I kind of like the boutique handmade type of cables versus the broad manufacturer stuff. Now I know that the Opos ones are handmade, but I'm not sure if they are mass-produced handmade or if they're, you know, fully handmade per order. I'm not exactly sure how that works. There are expensive cables for IEMs actually, and I have a few. So here's one for an IEM. This is a Triton audio cable. And I really do enjoy the sound of this cable. I don't remember all the specs, I'm sorry. But, and it's a MMCX connector, but it does the wave and drives me nuts. Does default to a 2.5, which is why I got that. I got that for my Meze Ray Penta. Another cable that I really, truly do enjoy is the one that is currently on my ESR, and that is Effect Audio. And this is the Effect Audio Maestro. And I love this cable. Nice and light, copper, well built, sounds fantastic, but they're pricey. So you have to just be, it just depends on what you're willing to pay and what you're looking for when it comes to a cable. Would I put the Effect Audio Maestro on something like a Blano 3? No. Would I put it on like the K-Bear KS1, which needs a cable change? No. But what do I put it on in the ESR? Yes, that's $1,000 IEM. So it kind of just depends on what you're going to use it for. Let's see. In my opinion, the main reason to replace cables is for terminations and feel and fit and finish. Feel free to argue that point. Now, actually, I don't. I do believe to a degree that some cables can change sonics, especially depending on if it's silver versus copper. Silver tends to be a little bit more bright, a little bit more energetic, sometimes has a little bit more clarity. Copper tends to be somewhat a little bit warmer at times, has a little bit more natural tone and timbre. That's pretty much about the only sonic differences that I hear between the two, as far as, especially with IEMs. Headphones, it's a little different. I find that headphones can be a little bit more finicky when it comes to cables. But for the most part, why I change cables is for the feel, for the aesthetics, for the terminations. So I don't disagree with you whatsoever there. A friend of mine spent $2,000 on a cable. He loved how it looks and how it feels, and it's really only jewelry. Yeah, I mean, that's exactly it. If you read my review, it's the Artic Cables, A Chilling Experience with Meze Empyrean. It's on my website. I pretty much talk about that because the Artic Cables run $300, $400, $500, and to me, the price versus what I'm gaining sonically isn't enough to really warrant it. But they were so lovely to hold and so wonderfully crafted. But yet, it's like, really, I don't know if I want to pay that price when I can get something as nice like an Opos audio cable, or something along those lines that just feels better and sounds the same. Hey, you know what? That's it. I mean, if you have the money to spend and you're not taking away from your family, you're not taking away from your loved ones and from your significant others, and they're okay with you spending that kind of money, by all means, go ahead and do it. Whatever makes you happy and whatever you enjoy. And if you think that you hear a difference, then you hear the difference. I'm not 100% sure if I would hear the difference, but I would love to hear it. Now, again, I'm not going to say that there is no differences, because I did have an experience listening with the Empyrean with different cables, and I did hear a difference. So yeah, cables do make a difference. Yeah, most expensive cables are audio jewelry. I would agree with you on that to a certain extent. But again, there are some sonic differences, and they're very subtle. They really are. It's extremely hard to hear. I can't stress that enough. And here's the other thing that sometimes gets missed is a lot of times I've heard a lot of reviewers say, oh, there's no difference between cables. There's no difference here. And it comes down to whether or not you have gear that is revealing enough to show the difference. So if you're slapping a $100 cable on a $20 IEM, you probably aren't going to hear a difference because the IEM or the headphone isn't quality enough to be able to reveal the differences. Here's ran a Susvara. Oh, lots of comments. Here's ran a Susvara with Alium, DAC, and benchmark. Nice. Do I have a favorite DAC? Yes, I do. It's the Mytek Liberty DAC. 20 AWG silver herringbone braided cables look very sexy. Yeah, they do. Actually, it does. It looks very nice. Yeah, world's best cables are really well made and actually really good value. I use those with my speakers, and I also use them as my RCA interconnects and XLR interconnects. I really do like world's best cables. Let's see. You change cables on the headphones when the OEM cable annoys you. Yeah, that's basically when I do it, or if I know that there's something sonically that may be different, is when I might try it differently. But I don't change a cable going in saying I'm going to change it sonically. I go into it thinking this cable's annoying, this thing is curling up on me, tangling up on me, all that kind of stuff. All right, let's see. Yeah. Do you prioritize a cable sonics? I put that last. So like if I have something and I need to tame down like the treble, for example, I'm going to first initially, if it's a headphone, I'm going to look at different pads. I'm going to look at different changing tips on an IEM. I may look at the music source that I'm using. Can I change it and use it on a different amplifier? Can I use it on a different DAC? What happens if I mix and match things differently? And then if things still aren't quite where I'm at, then I might change the cable. And lo and behold, who knows? Maybe the synergy will all come together. But usually changing cables for sonics is last on my place. It's not the first thing that I'm reaching for to change sonics. Let's see. Psychoacoustics is a science of listening. Even if it doesn't make a measurable difference, the way your brain is thinking about the sound can be changed by swapping out a cable. That's true too. It does work. And again, I'm going to say it in my Artic Cables write-up on my website. I actually mentioned that. I'm like, is my brain playing games with me? And then also you have to take into effect, you can't just swap a cable. You have to unplug it, plug it in, put it on your head. And so there's time that you pause your music and unpause your music, all that. So you have a good probably 30 seconds to a minute, depending on how long it takes you to change cables. And your brain will readjust. And as much as people say, oh, I have audio memory and I can remember back 5 years to what I heard, not so fast. Let's see. Not necessarily. It can change the sound, and it can change what you think. But I get what you're saying there. Oh yeah, Neo D plus USB class 2 best value USB. I haven't, if that's a USB cable, I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with that. If that's a USB cable, I haven't really messed around much with USB cables. As long as it doesn't feel janky, I use it. I haven't really heard a difference when I've changed them out. No audio, I've heard really good things about no audio. I haven't got to hear one yet. What's my favorite IEM under $100? Keeping in mind noise isolation. That's a tough question. But I would go Edomotic. Edomotic ER2SE for isolation and best sound. Blonde 03 has the worst cable. Totally agree with you, Chef Steve. Totally agree. That thing is janky, and unfortunately, the 01 and the 05 had it too. They fixed it with the Mini and the A8. Those two actually have a lot better cables. I actually would use the Mini and the A8 cables with other IEMs. I didn't think I'd ever say that about any other blonde cable, because those things are terrible. Yes, ER2 SE went on sale. Is the best thing for isolation. If you want a little more bass, go with the XR. But do keep in mind, XR actually has a little bit more treble intensity. The Blonde 03 cable lives in the naughty box. Absolutely. 660 or Ananda. I recommend that you watch my reviews on both. And they are somewhat similar, but different. So the Ananda is more like analytical and detailed, and has a little bit more wider stage, bigger depth and layering. Everything's larger on the Ananda. The 660S is a little bit more smaller staged and has a little bit more natural tone and timbre. But I like both of them a whole lot and love each one of them. Neither's going anywhere. The design scares you on the Etymotic. I understand that. If you don't like an IEM that inserts deeply, Etymotic can be a little hard in that regard. The $100. The Aria is not a bad choice for isolation. Even the SSR is not bad for isolation. Trying to think. You got to get pretty deep in there though for isolation. JT's never tried the Etymotics. Yeah, well, we can fix that. If you want to try them, just come on over to my house sometime and you can try the Etymotics. 600s or 660. 600s are more forward in the mids, have a little bit more aggressive treble. 660s are a little bit more balanced and cohesive across the way, have a bigger soundstage and more depth and layering. I wouldn't use Etymotics for day-to-day commutes. That's I would actually, if I was riding on a train, I would use Etymotics daily. I don't know if I would use them in the office all the time, though. Aria is a good choice. It really is for the price. You for what it offers, there's a lot there. Another one that you can check out, but it's not very easily found, is the CCA CKX, but I think you have to change the cable and tips on it, if I remember correctly. Highland headphones. I actually heard one at an audio show. They are, I don't remember which model it was. They're built similar to Grotto, a little wobbly, at least the model that I held, but they sound fantastic. They have like this natural openness and warmness to them. Very nice and clean sounding, very good tone and timbre, and I really enjoyed them. Would love to get one in for a review sometime. Yeah, true. Trains a little different. Sony XM4 earbuds are great in every way except fitting your ears. Well, that's kind of a problem. Yeah, if things don't fit, I mean, it doesn't matter how great they are as far as everything else. Best sounding IEM under $80. Yeah, man, that's a tough question. What tips do you recommend if they don't fit? I if I have tough times fitting like olive shapes or foams, I usually go flange. So either dual flange or tri-flange tips because they're pointed and they will insert a little bit better. But they might sound weird with the XM4. Yes, IEMs are very finicky with fit. It's weird. Like that's why it's so hard as a reviewer because you're like, oh, these fit great. And then everybody else is like, these things are like the worst fit ever. And so it's because all of our ears are just shaped differently and built different. Some have shallow ends and some have really deep. And it's really odd. And then some people tips just fit better and don't affect the sound as much, and others it's really, really strange. Do I agree with the bad comments on the Tin Hi-Fi T5? No. I stand by my review of the T5. Blonde Prometheus or the Aria? Okay, I would take the Aria. For me, the Prometheus had too many issues. It was just it was a roller coaster ride of a IEM. It's not a bad IEM, but to me, the Aria is the more refined and defined. If it were a few years ago, they updated the headband design. Since then, they're much more robust. My daily drivers were a pair of the Highlands. Very nice. Well, that's cool. Yeah, it was probably 2019, so it was probably one of their first models. Converge, you're very welcome. Yeah, Kennertons look gorgeous. That they're crazy beautiful. I would love to get one in for a review. Thanks, Josh. I appreciate that about the T5. Yeah, the Aria is not as aggressive as like a Starfield. If you've heard of Starfield, it has a little bit more intensity in the treble. The Starfield does. So the Aria is a little bit more laid back there. And it does isolate. In my opinion, isolates better than the Starfield for my ears. Have I heard electrostats? The only okay. Electrostats. I heard them at audio shows, which everything from stacks to Sonomas to Hi-Fi Men Jades to everything in between. The only one that I've reviewed and heard is the Cost 95X. And I like them. I'd rather get into them, but pricey, got to get energizers, got to get all kinds of other things to go with them. One day. If you have one you want to send it to me to review, bring it on. Thoughts on the Sinne Eeg or the LCD2? If you're picking between the two, I'd get the LCD2. The Eeg to me is shouty and doesn't resolve well and has funky mids. Very harsh. But I haven't had one in for review. That was just a friend's one that I heard. LCD2 is better in all ways, even though it's not my favorite headphone. Do you still plan on doing video reviews now your quest for the best has been conquered by the Empyrean? I will not do video reviews. Live streams and update videos, impressions, that type of thing, but I will not do an actual review. Most electrostats cannot change cables for safety reasons. That's very true. I think there's only a couple that actually have interchangeable cables. And I don't know if they've done very well in the real world, actually. Let's see. How do I feel about the Empyrean Phoenix? They're gorgeous. They're identical to. Now I haven't heard it, okay, but from what I'm told, they're identical to the regular Empyrean, and they are the exact drivers, the exact everything. The only difference is this part. So if you want to pay the extra $1,000 for the Phoenix look, go for it. I would love it, but that's a lot of money. 3,000 was enough for me. And I think from what I understand is Meze is going to do some other colors versions also, some other variants. I get chat updates before the video, so I'm getting spoilers on what he says from y'all in chat. Yeah, that's true. Stacks pins for electrostats are somewhat the standouts for electrostats now. Yeah, that seems to be the more common one, unlike headphones or IEMs where you've got so many bazillion connectors. Stacks is kind of, that's the way everybody has gone. I kind of wish headphones had done that. It's like, okay, let's stick with either XLR or 4.4, get rid of all the others, and then, you know, for all your connectors on your headphones, you just choose one. You know, I'm okay with getting rid of 2.5 and 3.5 inputs. Go with mini XLR, or you know, whatever. But it seems like every single headphone company has to come out with their own little tweak, and it just makes it hard to get all the same cables. Well, thank you. I'm glad that you enjoyed seeing the journey. You're very welcome for the entertainment content. I know I'm. Anyways, yeah, that's the only real complaint that I have on the LCD2, is that it's so heavy. So you like, even if you know you get the right setup, you get the right songs going, and you have them on your head, and you're just like, after a while, it just really wears. I totally understand that. Totally get that. Yes, MP Phoenix is just a paint job. So, anyways, I was talking about cables, and so this is the Triton cable that I got for the Empyrean. I showed you the other ones. One that I really enjoy that a lot of you can get, that doesn't affect sonics, but actually works really well, is the ones from Drop. So this is the premium 2-pin. In fact, I have one in here. And you can get it in 3.5 or 2.5 connectors. Get it on camera here. And then it is 2-pin only. They do not have an MMCX connector version. But I really do like the Drop one. The premium one is a little more expensive, but in my opinion, it feels better. It's a little more well-behaved, so when it coils up and stuff, it doesn't keep it. And then this is the other one, the cheaper version of it. And I still find that this one's a better upgrade. But to me, it just doesn't behave quite as well as the premium one. So for me, since I'm a little picky on how a cable just folds and, you know, holds its form and all that, and the ear hooks behave better, I find that the black one is not quite as good as the other. Plus, the other one's copper. If you like the copper, if you do think that it makes a change in sound. So the Drop cables, I really do highly recommend. Let's see. The other one that I was talking about, this is the one for the Meze. This is the Effect. This is also the Maestro, same one I have on the ESR, but this is the MMCX connection version. And I really do enjoy Effect audio. Only problem is they are somewhat pricey. You can find them though on like eBay, and sometimes you can get them a little bit cheaper that way. But as I've said, do I think that cables make a difference? They can. And I think that it just depends on the gear that's being used with. And also, is it revealing enough? Is your music revealing? Is your source revealing? That type of thing. And don't expect some amazing, holy cow, this thing is totally different sounding type of effect. It's more a subtle differences. And so you really do have to pay attention and listen. Anyways, that's just my 2 cents. Thank you, Christopher. I will have a cup of coffee on you. I do appreciate that. All right, I got to go back here. Let's see. Got a bunch of messages that while I was chatting about cables here. Let's see here. Thank you very much, Christopher. I do appreciate that. Coffee is my thing. Keeps me going every day. Tried the LCD too. You felt like you needed a neck brace. Yeah, it's like you need the Hans device that the race car drivers drive if you use an LCD. Even if you just use Audize. Get the LCD, get the suspension band, and then shorten the headband. It makes so much more comfortable. Oh, okay. See, I didn't have one myself, so I wasn't able to do the modding for it, as the ones I had were loans. Let's see here. Let's see, something about a budget for a close back, but I missed the original question. I do apologize for that. I'll find a link for you. One second. Awesomeness. Because you've had too much coffee is why he's still awake. That's a problem, but a good problem. I appreciate you joining. A couple other things that people have asked me about, like, do they make a difference? And it actually, you can hear a difference, believe it or not. And that is dongles. And people, as of late, it seems like, especially reviewers, say that they cannot hear a difference between dongles, they can hear a difference between DACs, they can hear a difference between amps. And I find that troubling. And it's just because there is a difference. Legitly, if there wasn't a difference, there wouldn't be so many manufacturers trying to make their case that there's a difference. So like the X Duo link, if you get that and you compare it to something like the ADV access port light or the Odyssey HD or the Spectre X from NextDrive, they all sound a little bit different. And this is just coming straight out of my phone, the Samsung Note 10 Plus. This one's a little bit warmer, a little bit more compressed. That's the ADV access port light. I love this thing, and it's, if you have a IEM that's a little bit on the brighter side, a little bit too brittle for you, try that. That'll warm things up a little bit. The Odyssey HD is a very clean sounding, does not really change the sound very much at all, and it has really good details and clarity. I really enjoy that. It's a very neutral sounding. X Duo Link is a very interesting one. Now, this is the original, not the second one. I haven't tried the second one. It's got volume control, play, pause, forward, skip button. It's very nice. And then the sound of it is kind of a mixture between the ADV and Odyssey. It's a little bit on the warmer neutral side, but at times it can be a little bit brittle up top and can be a little revealing and a little too much sharpness in it. And then the NextDrive Spectre X, love this. This is actually my favorite dongle that I have, and it has a naturalism to it. That's the way I would describe it. It just sounds natural and realistic, and it's got a little bit of a natural warmth to things, and it just sounds very pleasing and clear. And then one that I got just for fun because I was curious if it would work is an XLR USB, and it actually works. I don't use it very often, but it actually does work. You can run a XLR cable off of your phone. I don't recommend using a very hard to drive planar though, but it does work. So anyways, yeah, I do think that dongles and DACs make a difference. You can hear differences. I truly do believe it. All right, let's see here. Go back and read some of these comments. Somerset, UK. That's a little bit of ways across the pond from me. Well, Dapper Brick, I hope that you get your setup all going and you enjoy it, get it in the places that you would like. Close back budget for 300. You would have to ask that in an area where I haven't really explored things too much. Let's see, what do I got laying around? For fun, just for a funsy close back. If it was just, I didn't really care about all the details and the clarity and all that for funsies, it would be the Meze 99 Classic. If you can still get it, it would be the Audio Quest Nighthawk, the closed version. Nighthawk, I think it's Nighthawk. One of those two is the closed, whichever one's the closed one. Those two for fun. If you are looking for more studio reference, AKG K275s, AKG K371s are very good. 371s, though, do not have as much detail retrieval as you would think, as the K275s actually are a little bit more neutral than the 371. Let's see, what else we got? It's a good question because I really don't have a whole lot of experience in that range with closebacks. Closebacks are like my nemesis. Let's see. Forever Young. Hey, you've heard differences too. See, there legitimately is differences in cables. It's not massive differences, but there are differences on some gear. Some things you just don't hear at all, and I'll admit that. You have a pair of Highland Venus, which is very similar tonally to the LCD2, but actually more comfortable to wear for 6 hours. Nice. I might have to look into those because the Highlands that I did try, they were extremely light. And if they sound like an LCD2, might be something to look into. Let's see. Oh, I lost my spot. Sorry. Even before days as an audiophile and just an observation when I used to DJ. Cool. DJing, one thing I've never done, but I did run soundboards. Let's see here. What else we got? There's very popular Sony Studio closeback headphone. Can't recall it. Yeah, the MD R900 CSD or CD900 ST, something like that. Really weird name. Sony. Why don't you just name your stuff like everybody else? But anyways, I really like that. The only thing with that one is you have to change it to Yaxi pads. If not, the pads are atrocious. The stock pads are like wafer thin, and then it's uncomfortable, and it's got this really funky bass and mids with the stock pads. Can we talk music? You have a suggestion. What is your suggestion that you have there, Chef Steve? I'm curious to see what kind of music you have. Put it down there. I'll get to it. Let's see. A lot of these unnamed identical Chi-Fi dongles from China are popping up on forums, groups, and AliExpress. Only defining difference are variation of DAC chip. Yeah, that's really hard to be able to differentiate. And again, I understand where that comment's coming from. And just try it, I guess, and see if you hear it. I mean, but again, some of them are really pricey. So I totally understand it's what you're willing to take a risk at. If you can get a review on them, see a review, ask people on forums. if they've used one, people that you've actually trust and things like that, maybe you can get an idea of what it's going to sound like. Plus, if you kind of know what the DAC chip sounds like, let's see, if you find with those that are not being Denon AHD2000, have not heard that, but I've heard good things about it. Chris, are you asking me to define differences of dongles with your question there? Current trying to find a dongle combo and cables for the Focal Elex with the 789 and RME ADI2. Any major cable brands? Well, I would have said Dyson, but it appears that Dyson Audio is no more. Their website's completely down. If you want something more robust, you could go with Periap, but I actually like the Opos audio cable, and I do believe they have a Focal connector. The Opos one is thinner than the Periap. It's a little bit more not as stiff, and I just really enjoy it. It is copper, might tone down that treble just a tad on the Elex, and you can get it in different terminations. So you might want to check that out. Check out the affiliate link that I have with Opos if you're going to order it. Let's see. T50 RP for a closed back under 300. You could get an Argon. You could get just a T50 and then buy like the Mayflower kit and mod it yourself. Things like that. T50 is not bad. Do have to have a good amp to drive it. And it does have a couple funkiness, but they can be very fun to mod. It'll be single-ended internally. The XLR dongle, the chips in that package size aren't balanced yet, as far as I know, but maybe soon. Dongles. So there's a lot of interesting dongles that you can get. Where'd I put mine? Hold on. I put them somewhere. I had a bunch of stuff sitting there next to me. Now I can't find it. Oh, here it is. So if you ever buy a Sennheiser and you get that bag with a cable in it, keep it. You can put a bunch of junk inside it. So speaking of dongles, so you can get all kinds of dongles. XLR 2.5. You can get XLR to 4.4. You can get 4.4 to XLR. You can get 6.35 to 4.4. XLR to quarter. 3.5 to quarter. Or you can do it in reverse, quarter to 3. Or you can do 4.4 to RCA. All kinds of things. There's all kinds of dongles. Just kind of have to research it. But make sure that the reviews are good and make sure that the branding is at least decently known. If it's one of those ones that sounds too good to be true, I would shy away from it and not get it. But yeah, there's a lot of dongles out there. You just have to understand the topologies and how that balanced and single-ended work together, so you don't blow things up. Yes, Josh, you did say that out loud. You did say that some reviewers do not hear differences. Unfortunately, you will not hear that from me. If you're looking for me to say there's no differences in anything, you will not hear me say that. I do believe there are differences in gear. I do believe that there are differences in DAC chips. I do believe that there are differences in cables. I do believe that there's differences that can be caused through different types of drivers that are also from changing tips and pads, all kinds of things. I do believe that you can alter the sound based on it. Also, while we're on the topic of things that some other reviewers don't believe, I believe that burn-in makes a difference. But let me clarify this. On everything that I've said, it doesn't affect every single headphone. Everything is affected differently. So you will not always hear differences out of burn-in on every single headphone or IEM. It affects things differently. Same thing like cables, they do affect things differently. And DACs, amps, some you might hear a difference, some you won't. I had a chance to demo their new Eclipse, the Highlands, before they released. I had a socially distanced demo in a park in London with the owner. They're absolutely amazing closed back cans and so comfy. Awesome. Yeah, there you go. The MDR CD 900 STs. Aurora, you have them on your head. Awesome. Did you put the Yaxi pads on them? Going to look for a used pair of Highland venues might be my end game. I mean, all the talk about them is interesting to me. I'm going to have to look them up. Let's see. Yeah, the THX AAAs and the 610s and are good, good closebacks. You do get a difference with the THX AAAs, depending on which ones you get. Let's see. I'm open to based on the sound 100% versus planar dynamics. I mean, yeah, it is. To me, I don't have a preference whether it be planar or dynamic. It's really interesting how each one does certain things differently, and some do better than others. And to me, there's not one that is the end all. You only should get planar, or you should only get electrostat, or you should only get dynamic, or you should only get some sort of hybrid mixture, like they have in the Meze. But it's just how it's implemented. It's each manufacturer puts their own little touch on it, and each one of them does a fantastic job of tweaking it to be their own. And I really do enjoy that, because why have so many manufacturers if they're all going to sound the same? So when people say that they don't hear a difference, then why are you listening to all the gear if you don't hear a difference? I guess that's my thought on it. Did I say that out loud? Let's see what else we got. The order process for a handmade pair of headphones was absolutely great. He was really good at talking through the choices and how that would affect your overall sound. That's cool that he didn't just say, okay, you pick it. You decide what type of wood you want on it, and just made it so that you're blindly just selecting, oh, I think that looks nice, oh, that looks nice, and then you get a headphone that just sounds like trash because nothing meshes together. Gino, I will change headphone pads way before changing the cable. Way more bang for the buck. Prefer fun over detail. The Mezes are on my list, as are a few others. Absolutely. I highly recommend it. IEMs or headphones. If you have something that you want to tweak in the sound, first change pads. If that's not quite where you're going for, maybe look at a cable. But also look at your source gear, look at your DAC, look at your amplifier, look at your dongle or whatever you're using. Maybe you use a DAP, something like a Sony WM1A or an NWA 105 or something else. And you need a little bit different of a sound. Sometimes changing your DAP will also make a difference, or changing your dongles. Heart Audio is very good for what they do. They do have some interesting stuff. So here's the thing for me, though, with Heart Audio. So you still have to buy the actual connector to the headphone to the 4-pin. Okay. So if you have a bunch of different connectors on your headphones, so like I have mini XLR, I have 3.5, I have 2.5, and I have Hirose, however you pronounce the one that Dan Clark uses, and have the Sennheiser ones. So with Heart Audio, you have to buy your actual connector part that goes into your headphone, right? To the 4-pin. Then you buy your multi-kit. You're still racking up a ton of money buying that set, whereas I can just buy one cable for each of the headphones if I'm going to replace the cables and get the termination that I want. I'm not saying that Heart Audio is bad. I like what they're doing. I like the idea of the quick switching thing. That's cool. But at the same time, it's still pricey, just like the other cable manufacturers are. It's 2 a.m. Somebody stopped me. No, it's only 9:02. 99 Classics for 300 is an option. Very nice made too if you like the sound characteristics. Yeah, I mean, it's a fun sound, nice and warm, lush, big bass. I love the 99 Classics. They're fun. Hey, John, how are you? By the way, since somebody mentioned Heart Audio, I actually like the Oppo's flow cable better than the Heart Audio cable, just because for me it feels better. It feels more actually better in the hand than the Heart Audio cable that I held a while ago. So I actually like the feel of it better. It just feels more durable. Plus, it uses better connectors, in my opinion. But I've only used Heart Audio with one headphone. Let's see, what else we got? I lost my spot. Too many people talking, which is a good thing. Let's see here. Planar is your only current generation one. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Is my only current generation one. I'm missing something there. Oh, you have planars, dynamics, and electrostats, but you only have planars currently. Gotcha. AKG K240 Studios are much cheaper than the ships, but punch far above their price point for resolve and clarity. I agree. I actually like the 240s. They're a very good, cheap, semi-open back headphone. They do a really good job as far as being a good monitor in that regard for very cheap. They're comfy too. You might have to change the pads on them if they still have the real crappy pads that AKG used to chuck on them, but I'm not sure. Also, another one that's similar to the 240, if you wanted, is a Super Lux. You can go that route too, but the AKG actually resolves better than the Super Lux. Have the Aeon ones from Mr. Speakers. Nice. I like the Aeons, but I like my Ether C better. You're a headphone hoarder with a serious problem. You can't be stopped. There's nothing wrong with that, really, as long as you're not going into debt to feed your hoarder ness. Let's see. And that's a sign of a true audiophile. Absolutely. I mean, I own, let's see, just sitting here 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 headphones. Well, I'm sorry, one of those is alone, so 13 headphones I own, and I sold a bunch. Quantum Creator, good to see you. So I can't say anything. I'm also a hoarder, and don't ask me how many IEMs I have. Way too many. All right, let's see, get back to the questions. You haven't tried the original Aeons. They're actually really comfortable and a very unique sound signature that is very pleasing to most. You're just here for a good time and poor financial lifestyles. Awesomeness. You're in the right spot. Oh, you meant that your dynamics and electrostatic headphones are vintage. Gotcha. It can be an expensive hobby. You can still get really good quality on a budget if you are willing to do your research and you know what you're looking for. If you're just constantly buying budget stuff, yeah, it'll get expensive because $20 here, $50 here, $100 here, that adds up. Whereas if you do your research and you buy something for like $100, that's quality, might save yourself some money. Let's see here. The Geekeria silver cable, is that this one by chance? Do they have the minis or do they still have the 2.5s? Because that's the Geekeria, but with the mini XLR. I use this with my AKG K275s. I never made a review of the A105 DAP, and the reason DAPs are really hard to review. I reviewed a couple back in the day on my channel, and they're challenging to do. I haven't completely dropped the idea of not reviewing them. I may do like a write-up and a comparison between the DAPs that I currently have and do that on my website. But I haven't done an official, no. Sorry if you're looking for one now. Let's see. You've sold a bunch of spare headphones. You'll be at 30. That's a decent amount. I'm sure you have a reason, so no questions. Music suggestions. Electric Guest. So well reordered, sounded awesome. Electric Guest. I haven't heard of them. I will check them out. So I'm curious. A couple of people have mentioned that they hear differences. If we were to poll everybody that's in here, we have 29 people in here right now. I'm curious if you just give a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Thumbs up if you do hear differences in cables, DACs, amps, or anything. You don't have to be super specific unless you want to be. And thumbs down if you don't. I'm just curious to see what happens in the chat. How many thumbs up and how many thumbs downs do we get? Looking for audio nirvana. Awesome. You need to get one of these. Well, he really hears the difference. He got 5 thumbs ups. No thumbs downs yet. I'm surprised. Cables down, amplifiers and DACs up. Okay. I'll give you that one. It's kind of tricky, it's interesting. I'm surprised that as many do hear it. Same as Jin. Okay. So yeah, I mean, I think there is a legit difference, and it's kind of, I'm sorry, I got distracted. Copper cable purity has a small increase. We're jumping to silver. Insulator better has a multiplier on audio quality. Yeah. There's definitely a sonic difference between those two. Yes, absolutely. Totally agree with that. There is subtle differences between DACs. And, there's more of a difference when you go from like Delta Sigma to R to R, things along those lines, or if you go to a tube DAC, things like that, you really can hear differences that are more noticeable. Whereas if you're just comparing R to R to R to R, or you're comparing Delta Sigma to Delta Sigma, the differences are a little bit more subtle, and it kind of comes down to what chip you're actually using. So, I totally agree with that. Amplifiers are a little tricky too, and for me, amplifiers can be because of op amps being thrown in, can be how that they're wired as far as like input going to outputs and crossovers and feeds and all that kind of stuff that's in there. definitely everything can make a difference. All right, currently using budget Philips 9500s, looking for a more resolving headphone between HD 660s and Sundara. Which one would be a noticeable improvement, like night and day difference over the Philips? Either one. I haven't heard the 95s. The only Philips that I've heard are X2 and X2HR, and some really cheapy, really bad ones. But I would say either the 660 or the Sundara would have a big difference over the 9500. I would probably lean with Dapper Brick saying the Sundara would be the more noticeable big differences for sure. But you have to have the amplifier to push it. P-Run Rock Voice. P-Run? P-Run? I haven't heard of that. I will have to look that one up. Yeah, it depends on what the amplifier is. The 660s actually aren't really amp picky. They're only 150 ohms, so they're a lot easier to drive than most other Sennheisers, and they're definitely easier to drive than the planar Sundar. Yep, totally agree with it, Chris. It is very much depends on how they are coded and set up and tweaked. And there's a lot of other things that go into it too. Like they can add all kinds of extra chips and all kinds of wirings and all kinds of things. It's nuts. DACs are very complex. I didn't realize it until I was talking one day with Gishelli Labs, and Gino was talking about, oh, we're doing this with the with the JNOG and the J2, and I'm like, okay, can you say that in more layman terms so I actually understand what you're talking about? He just kind of laughed. Let's see. Moondrop SSR, the most natural sounding IEMs you've heard within that price range, or would you suggest anything like the T3? T3 is a little bit step up to the SSR. If you really want something that's a little bit more natural sounding, you could go with Etymotic also. So you have the SSR, and then you have your going to about $60, you have the T3, and then if you want to go a little higher up, you would have the Etymotic ER2XR and the ERSE, and all of those are very natural and realistic sounding. So it just kind of depends on what your budget is. If it's $40, I would go SSR. If it's $60, I'd go T3, and if it's $80 to $100, I would go upwards to the Etymotics. If you want to do $40 and you want to add a little bit more bass, a little bit more fun factor, you could go Jade EA1. If you can find that, it's kind of hard to find. Hey, thanks, John. Glad that you hear differences too. Did you find your end game? I did find my end game. They're right here. Up to how much are you willing to spend for an IEM and headphone cable? I'm kind of in the $150 to $200 is about my max. When it starts going over $200, no matter what the headphone is, I'm kind of going, So like the Apos flow cable for the Meze is bordering that range, and to me, it meets all of my criteria for what I want in a cable. So that's kind of where it is. IEMs, it's still about $150. That's what I've paid for the Effect Audio. Where I put that for the ESR. You love the Blessing 2. I love the Blessing 2. It's a great IEM. Excellent detail and clarity, very nicely controlled, and very well extended both ways. Has a very nice linear bass to it that has got great texture and tone and timbre on it. extremely good IEM. Really love my Blessing too. Yeah, output stages on DACs definitely are complex, to say the least. You experienced a balanced connection last night with an S8. The difference is massive. Well, good. At least you could hear the difference. Peyrun is from Russia. Oh, okay. I will definitely have to look them up. It's getting confusing. Just listen to music. It really can. But also it gets really fun because then you get to find the synergy. You get to find what you like and what you don't like. And if you really listen to your music and you understand the music, you will understand the gear and what it's saying to you and what it's telling you. And then you can find your match and you can find your end game. Yeah, some decks have very subtle differences, and then others are very wow, holy cow, this is totally different. And they'll take you by surprise sometimes. The most faithful material is silver lits. Yeah, probably. I also like copper a lot. I don't know exactly all of the numbers. I don't pay attention to all that, but the silver lits, as I've heard, have sounded really good. I have a couple of them for my ADVs, but they're out on loan right now. So that's another cable actually that I recommend for IEMs. If you're looking for a 2-pin, is the ADV upgraded cable. So if you go to advsound.com and you can get their upgrade cable, I think it's $150. It's 2-pin. It's an excellent cable. I'm not going to suggest anyone spend, apparently I cannot. Okay. AirPods Max. No, I'm not even interested. And pretty much if it's Bluetooth, I'm not really interested. I'm still the guy that takes wired headphones on an airplane, and I'm going to be flying next week, so I'll take my wired IEMs with me. Speaking about DACs, I'd probably like to get my hands on a Sonic Frontier SFD1 Mark II. That's another thing I haven't heard of. You're giving me all kinds of stuff I'm gonna have to look up. Apparently, it's a great sounding tube R2R DAC. Someone else mentioned it back when I had my Discord. Somebody was talking about tube R2Rs, and they said that I needed to hear one. I never got the opportunity. Just like your computer, the setup you have will be defined by its worst component. Very true. Yeah, I mean it is kind of crazy if you're like content with what you have and then you change your amp or your DAC, all of a sudden it like changes everything. At least it can change everything. And you're like, wow, I never heard it like that before. Is what's going on? Did I review the Sultan? Yes, I did. It is on YouTube. The Noble Sultan, very good IEM, a little pricey, but I did enjoy it. Wish it had a little bit more air up top, but other than that, it was a great IEM. It was by far the best Noble I've heard. Packy Lundholm, Now Is the Time, a great album. I will check that one out. I haven't heard that one either. And he probably goes along the lines of Silver. He does talk about you from time to Silver. Probably. Let's see. But unlike my computer, my hi-fi can't play Minesweep. Well, um, you can still get the. No, never mind. Oh, and he does own it. Oh, okay. Well, then he would be the one that was telling me about it. Spider Solitaire. I am. I never really played either one of those. I did a little bit, but I never got really into those games. When what game did I play on the computer? I don't remember now. Good set of headphones will make a bad quality track worse as it will pick up on its faults. It amplifies the detail of what is fed to it. Absolutely. If a very revealing type of headphone will make a very bad track sound even worse. And the crazy thing is, if you have a really good DAC, a really good amplifier, and a really good headphone, and it'll clear out your library very fast. The Empire Ears ESRs are very much that for an IEM. If you want to listen through your library and decide what ones are good, which ones are bad, there you go. Use that. Mr. Speaker's Ether C is a very good headphone to do that with also. So one thing that actually I'm curious about, see if you guys, what your thoughts are. So one thing that I'm noticing happening quite a bit now is there's a trend, especially in some reviewers, that they like elevated treble, especially like beyond 10K, and they like it to be way elevated so that it brings in and boosts in like the airiness and brings in a larger soundstage, and it also enhances like the details in that area, but it becomes harsh in my opinion. I'm curious, do you guys like that sound, or is that something that you prefer to be tamed down a little bit? Also, do you like elevated 8K, 6 to 8K region also? I'm just curious as to that, because that seems to be kind of the focus going in IEMs right now, is that all of that to be elevated and boosted out and way extended. And to me, it doesn't sound natural and accurate. I'm curious if anybody has thoughts on that. Also, one thing that I've kind of noticed is that a lot of times there's a lot of reviews that come out in which people will harp on the treble or harp on the details being too intense and all this and that, but then they'll be like, but this is my preferred frequency graph and the IEM matches it. And you're like, but wait a minute, you don't like how it sounds, but it matches your graph. I'm curious, do you actually know what you prefer on a graph? I don't know, this kind of cracks me up sometimes. Anyways, not gonna call anybody out though. Natural over enhanced, in my opinion. Yeah, a lot of times, that's the way I lean, is I prefer a natural sound versus that boosted sound that is a little bit over accentuated to bring in details or to give a little bit more fun factor. To me, that's not natural and accurate. I would prefer it to be more natural and accurate. I've not heard Hearts, so I'll check them out maybe or maybe not. Who knows? It's 2 a.m. Anything goes here. Welcome to the, I don't know what that is. That made me search for many other brands which you never heard of. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm very much of the take. I prefer it to be natural sounding versus the boosted. I can, when people boost things out to make the soundstage super large, to me that's actually not accurate, because that's not how we hear things. To me, no. Do I EQ? I've got interested in Shit's new Lucius and wonder if it's worth for my Head-Fi system. You know what? I think the Lucius would work good for like speakers. I'm not sure if it would work so much for a headphone or IEM setup. But I haven't heard it. It does look interesting though. And EQ does have its place. Now, I don't EQ, but I have dabbled with it in the past. I've done a few reviews of them. And I think it has its place. And one thing that I like using EQ for is to find the areas that something's struggling with. So like, okay, that's really sharp. I can turn it down or tone it down, and you can figure out exactly kind of where the flaws are of a product. I think that's where EQ kind of works for me. Can you name some albums you can listen to from first to last song? For me, Fleetwood Mac Rumors and Neil Diamond's Hot August Nights. Well, there's two of them that I can listen to. Pretty much anything from David Phelps I can listen to. So just look up David Phelps. Any of his albums I can listen to straight through. Same thing with Harry Connick Jr. I can listen to Harry Connick Jr. straight through. Amber Rubarth I can listen to straight through any of her albums. That's what comes to mind off the top of my head. I Fight Dragons, but their entire discography. Loved everything, all slaps. Hey, it's okay if it vibes. If it's not recorded well, there's nothing wrong with that. Hate EQ. Yeah, no, I can see that side of it, and I'm open to EQ, but I don't use it. And as I said, I only use it really as a tool. I don't use it to fix my sound. If I have to EQ something to enjoy it, then it's not for me. That's the way I look at it. Always EQ. No headphone or IEM will ever be tailored to a point. All can enjoy it. No one will ever be 100% satisfied, but an EQ can improve the experience and enhance the sound to your music genre's taste. I understand that argument. I really do. And I'm not going to say it's wrong. And I'm not going to say I'm right. I'm just, my preference is not to EQ. If I have to EQ something to fix it, to sound it right, it's not for me. But I respect that you use EQ. I have no problem with that. Okay. I get your point, but I'm an idiot who would rather have a million pairs of headphones than just EQ a handful. True. I understand. Don't get me wrong. I understand that. And I'm not against it. It's just I don't use it. I mean, I understand what you're saying. To each their own, full respect. Yeah, absolutely. The one thing, there are some headphones that do like everything else properly, or IEMs that do everything good, like from the mids and the treble and soundstage and everything, but it just needs more bass impact because you really want to just rock out. I totally understand either in EQ bass boost or EQing the sub bass, things like that. I totally understand that. I get it. Again, it's just not for me. Yeah, so I'm also a purist, so that's the reason why I lean that way. But I'm also an open-minded purist. I guess you could. Is that such a thing? Open-minded pure. Oh, well, it's getting late. I'm getting tired. I'm saying stupid stuff. But yeah, also the other thing, the other aspect of it is you can take like a different type of amplifier, or you can change tubes in a tube amp, or you can change your DAC or things like that, and it'll tweak the sound a little bit also. Yeah, I'm very much a natural sounding person. I prefer that sound, and I've always been that way. I've always been on the search for looking for what sounds natural. My bass boost EQ is grab a pair of Foster. Yeah, that's the easiest way to do it, actually. Get yourself some argons, you're good to go. I need that coffee, yes, absolutely. 2:30 a.m., you're still not stopping. Hey, I'll go to 2:30 a.m. Whew, oh, I shouldn't have said that because that's 5 hours from now. No, I can't go that long. Yeah, I mean it's craziness actually right now in the audiophile community. It seems like all the time, oh, you don't use EQ, you're evil, or you use EQ, you're evil, or you hear a difference in DACs or amps, you don't hear a difference in DACs and amps or Artic Cables or this and that and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, no, why can't we all just agree to disagree and just move on and just appreciate everybody else's opinions and just respect each other? And if you like to use DSD or FLAC or MQA or WAV files or whatever, cool. That's fine. Whatever you think sounds best, use it. If you prefer Qobuz or you prefer Deezer or you use Tidal or if you use Amazon HD or you use Spotify or you use whatever. I mean, there's so many of them. Whatever streaming source you want. If it sounds good to you and you're happy with it, that's all that matters. I'm happy for you that you have found what sounds good. I just wish more people would take that approach instead of beating everybody up for liking something that they don't. Treble booster is the 990s. Yeah. Mostly the 1990s. That's not a treble boost. It's an ear knife. It could be. I actually don't mind the 990s. Kind of. Don't shoot me. EA3 is a little bit warmer. It does have a little bit of like a sharp intensity in the 8K-ish region. There you go. Use EQ, don't use EQ, doesn't matter. Just enjoy the music and stare at pretty headphones pictures online while you cry over the price tags. I do that all the time. I really do. Yeah, you look at stuff and you're like, man, why do you have to be so expensive? I want to review you. Why do you have to be so expensive? Says the guy that owns one of these. All right. In my personal experience, I love a mid-centric vocal forward track as a metalhead where the complex sounds of multiple layers of distortion are washed out or wash over the singer. EQ is always needed. I can understand that. There are certain genres that EQ definitely benefits. Totally understand that. Yeah, there's been too much cancel stuff and a culture that hasn't allowed different preferred things, but have tried to have one voice. I know what major platform I think led this mindset. But do you? I might. IEMs versus headphones. What's the best value? Better question is, what's your usage? I would probably lean towards IEMs. You can get a better value out of, but I don't. Yeah, it's a tough question. Your headphones all look jank. They're not particularly pretty. Well, it depends on what you have. Not everything's as pretty as an Empyrean. Close back under $600. Not really. I'm very much closed back is not my thing. I need to explore that more. Have I heard the NF Audio NA2 Plus? Josh, remind me, is that the one that I reviewed? I don't remember the model number. If that's the one that I heard, then yeah, I heard it and I wasn't a big fan. Desktop headphone wallpapers. Actually, I haven't found any real good ones. I made my own. So you're free to use anything off of my Instagram if you want to use what some people say are blurry pictures. What's better between ZAX and SSR? Oh no, it's the NA2 that I heard. Okay, NA2's yeah, don't get that one. Mega bassy, muddy, no treble. NA2 plus I haven't heard. All right, let's see. What's better between ZAX and SSR? I would go SSR, but for me, that's because I like a little bit mid forwardness, and I like the treble, and I like that it's kind of like a IEM version of an HD 600. ZAX is a little bit more balanced, isn't quite as forward in the mids, has a little bit more bass. I did a review of both of them. About the new 2021 LCD XC, the KEF LS50 Metas, nice. SMSL SU9. I'm giving it a break for a while to actually enjoy what I have. Yeah, I would say you're probably, well, pretty set right now. I haven't heard the SU9, but I've heard really good reviews of it, and I would love to hear one. The Metas, a friend of mine has those. He loves them. And the XC, the new ones, I'm curious about those because I heard the original ones and the mids were a little funky. Curious to see if they fix that on the new version. Let's see. AKG K1000s, Stax SR404 LEs, and Stax SR303s. Now, K1000s I've always wanted to hear. Ew, drink vinegar. Eesh. No. I might one day own a Jacqueline Float QA. Again, something else I had never heard of. Does 8-core cables make IEM sound better? That's a good question. To be honest, I don't really pay attention to how many cores things have. I know some people think that, the more cores, the better, the thicker, the more prominent, the blee. What I care about is, does it sound good? It doesn't matter if it's thin or thick, what it's made of. It's more, how does it play with what I have it plugged into, and do I enjoy it? That's all that really matters to me. Sorry, not a very good answer. Scientifically wise, probably yes. Best solid state amp under $500. Now that's a loaded question. 789 is a good one. There's a couple others I've heard. I can't remember the model numbers. Sorry, I'm not really thinking much on that in the $500 range. Can I update my Discord link? No, I can't because I don't have Discord anymore. Oh, they're in good condition. They just don't look like anything like a Meze Empyrean. Well, to be fair, there's not too much that does. They're just gorgeous. Don't mean to rub it in. Did I get an upgraded cable for my Empyrean? Yes, I did, actually. Got a couple. I did a post on my website about some cables that I tried for the Empyrean, but also the Opos Flow cable is very nice for the Empyrean. Uses ring connectors, paracord, nice and thin, very well behaved, and you can get it in various terminations. Runs about 150 bucks. Very good cable. The other one that I got is a Corpe Audio GraveDigger, and this one is XLR. But this one has a rubbery type of connection to it. Your phone is about to die, which means I'm going to go to bed. It's been great to hang out with y'all nerds. Catch you soon. Alrighty, Dapper, charge up your phone and have a good night. Thanks for swinging by. Cayenne IHA6. Yes, that actually I've heard very good things about. That might be a good suggestion. Another one that's getting really good reviews, but I haven't heard it yet, is the Gustard X16, I believe, the amplifier that runs right at $500 right now. What is my favorite IEM? Is it okay if I mention a couple? I don't have one that is like my favorite, but my favorites are the Empire Ears ESR. That's my workhorse. That is my reference one. And then my more fun sounding, engaging, and chillax is the Meze Ray Penta. And then also, I have a bunch of favorites. The ADV M512D is kind of also a reference one. Do beryllium dynamics have better details and technicalities than what? It's beryllium has a unique way of presenting. So whether it be IEM or headphone, to me, beryllium has a very like fast speed to it and is very accurate, and can be, but it also depends on how it's implemented. Topping A90 would be another $500 option for sure. But again, I haven't heard it yet. By the way, if you do decide to purchase anything from Opos, use my affiliate link down below. That way you can support the channel a little bit while making a purchase. Showing you love. So I wanted to talk a little bit about like cables that are annoying. So like the Mr. Speaker's Ether C, all right? They've got these weird connectors, but then the replacement cables are freaky expensive. And so when I purchased my Ether C, the person I purchased them from sent me this balanced cable, but this thing is atrocious. It sounds good, but it's built terribly. So you have to be careful when you buy replacement cables that you actually research like the quality, that, you know, how they feel and fit and all that kind of stuff, because there's some bad ones out there. Cals have beryllium drivers and super cheap. That's true. The Cals are real fun. I actually have the Cal 2s over here. I use them for gaming, just for fun, because I like the big boomy sound. But the Cals, the regular Cals, are actually really good for the price tag of like less than $100. Okay, so what's the difference between $100 and $400? Just depends on implementation. And also a lot of it comes into detail retrieval and resolution and tone and timbre. So it's the way that it's presented is usually more, it's going to be subtle differences, but it's just better overall. It's like when you are buying a car. So you have the base model and then you have the LX model, and just the little things that it adds in and increases in adds to the experience and adds to the differencing of it. That's kind of the way that I would look at the differences between them. I haven't heard the Blessing 2 Dusk, but I've heard the Blessing 2. I want to hear a Dusk. I hear that the Dusk brings in just a little bit more bass and also brings down just a little bit of the treble, because some people think that treble's a little too bright on the Blessing 2. I think the treble's perfect on the Blessing 2, but some people think it's a little too much. That's so much memory in the cable. feel sad for those who purchase them. Oh, absolutely. That's the reason why I kind of like fabric cables more than just this plasticky rubbery feel. Like this is the original ether cable, the dumb cable I think it's called, and even though it's old, it's still in really good shape and it's not janky. And so it's fabric up top and it works. There's just some cables that just don't know how to do it right. It's just kind of sad. Like if you really want a bad cable, get yourself an Ananda and get one of these medical tubing kits. I mean, seriously, if you need to hook somebody up for some oxygen or something, you could just take your terminations off. That's one of the worst cables ever made. I don't know what Headphone was thinking. Let's see. Yeah. Still want to hear the Blessing 2 Dusk. By the way, I like the Blessing 2 when how the Dusk is. Yeah, I think that as I said, the Blessing Dusk has a little bit more bass and it tames down just the upper treble just a little bit. Surprise question, do you think power supplies make a difference? Did a review on that. Yes and no. And I think that it kind of depends on your incoming power where it would make a difference. I think in more older stuff, it probably would make more of a difference than it does in the more current stuff. Yeah, the Ananda cable is just horrific. And the higher end stuff that came with it, some of the things that came after the Ananda came with that cable. And I was like, what are you thinking? That's just awful. Just terrible. By the way, you can get Headphone cables with Oppos. Let's see. If something is old still works, it must be good. Very true. Absolutely. I mean, there's a reason why I'm still using the Mytek Liberty DAC, is because even though it's an older DAC, it just sounds good, and to me, nothing has beaten it yet for me. That has come in and said you need to buy this and replace. So, totally agree. If something works, also cables, same thing. And I've had new cables that have broken immediately. Blonde, for example. Anyway, do amps improve soundstage and separation? They can. So, for example, the SPL Phonitor SE that I had, that completely blew my mind the way it did soundstage. It was craziness, and separation on it was insanity because of the way that they worked in the crossfeed. So it just kind of depends on the implementation and how that they go forward through their build process and creating it so that it does that with their output stages. Hi-Fi makes good sound. Love to see the build to continue to build cables include. Yeah. The one thing that I've always complained about with Hi-Fi is their cables. And believe it or not, and I know that this is kind of the drop variant of it, but the 5XX has a nicer cable than the Sandora. I don't know how it is, but it's like I actually like the 5XX cable better than the Sandora cable. Hi-Fi is wacky in that way. Hi-Fi stock cables are, yeah, they're, I mean, I don't know what they were thinking when they did this cable. This is their, back in the day, the 2.5 cable. Look how stiff this thing is. I mean, you could make a noose out of it. It's that stiff. All right. Anyways. Poorly insulated power supplies can ruin the whole chain, and you're set up with horrible buzz and distortion. Yeah, absolutely. I do think that the newer, for the most part, most newer gear is better insulated, but I'm sure that there are some that are really cheapskates out there and some really poorly made stuff. So, totally agree on that. Yes, whether amps improve soundstage and separation, though, depends on your headphones. If your headphones are bottlenecking it, then getting a better amp won't make a good difference. Absolutely, totally agree with that. And actually, that's kind of the whole point of this whole live stream that I've been trying to get across is you have to have gear that reveals it. If you have non-quality stuff and you're trying to throw all this quality cables and DACs and amps at it, but your headphone isn't worthy or your speakers aren't worthy, you're not going to hear a difference. Or vice versa, if your DAC is one of the worst sounding DACs around, but you change everything else and you're like, well, why does it still sound bad? You have to upgrade everything and get it. You have to have a revealing source. Better analogy would be an RTX 3080 Ti on a CRT monitor. Yeah, there you go. Absolutely. That could be a problem. Yeah. It's like when I was watching a movie that was shot in this like the 70s and hadn't been remastered and digitalized, and I was watching it on a 4K TV, and I was like, whoa, what's up with the pixel kind of stuff? This is kind of weird. Superlux plus $1,000 amp and DAC is honestly the way to go. You know what? It would probably actually sound fairly decent. Those are actually, it'd probably be a fun sound. Is it the best thing ever? No. An amp will push a driver to its best. A DAC will express the track being played to its best. That's how I've learned it. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Chris. I totally agree with that. If you're bottlenecking it in one place or the other, or in both places, your sound is going to be messed up. Absolutely, totally agree with that. There's so many times that you'll be like, man, this sounds compressed, and you'll have to kind of mess around with things, either swapping amps or swapping DACs to figure out if it's the track, if it's the source, if it's your amplifier, if it's your headphone. That's what makes this whole hobby fun, is being able to hear all the subtle differences. KSC 75 off of Boulder amplifier. I have a KSC 75 in house right now. Maybe I could, maybe somebody will loan me a Boulder amplifier so I could hear that. Mostly agree. What don't you agree with? At the end of the day, we're talking an insanely subjective hobby. Experience and opinions on these questions are just going to differ. Oh, absolutely. And that's what makes it fun. I love hearing other people's experiences, other people's opinions. And you know what? At the end of the day, you just have to agree to disagree or agree to agree. It's like you beating people's heads into the ground just because you don't agree with them is just stupid. And it's just going the wrong way right now in the community. There's so many, in my opinion, there's so many reviewers that are putting forth their thoughts only, and they're demanding that everybody bow down to them. It's like, oh, they're the god, they're the glorified one, so we need to trust only them. And no, not everybody. We're all created differently. We all hear differently. We all have different gear. It's an experience, and we should enjoy everybody's experiences and journeys. That's why you EQ. Okay. That's right. That is why you EQ. Yes. Are super expensive IEMs like the KSE 1500s worth of thousands of dollars, or has Chi-Fi closed that gap dramatically? I wouldn't say Chi-Fi has closed the gap dramatically, but they have closed the gap. There are some chi-fi that do things better than others. Let's put it that way. And there are some that can compete with some of the higher name brands. Because when you get up into that higher price bracket on IEMs, as I said earlier, it becomes harder and harder to differentiate the technicalities. And then it becomes more of differences in tone, differences in other characteristics of the sound, you know, like big bass or more treble or, you know, things like that, or the build quality or, you know, the technology inside it. So yes, you are right. Chi-Fi has gotten closer, but are they there yet where you're going to start seeing a $1,000 Chi-Fi IEM beat out one of those $4,000 IEMs? I don't think so quite yet. But it is interesting to hear them, and it is interesting to compare them because you are getting that gap's getting a lot closer, in my opinion. Okay, so as I point out, output stages, most DACs still have baby amps in them, and that can play a part in the analog output. Because of this, it's still going to go through an amp, sure, but it can play a role. But again, I must agree with Christopher generally. Gotcha. Okay. There are so many types of different headphones aside from planars, dynamics, and electrostats, and uncharted territory for a majority of today's audiophiles. Oh, absolutely. There's so many technologies, and there's some new stuff that's coming out. You know, like the hybrid planar that's inside the Empyrean, things like that. I would love to see headphones go more into that. Like IEMs have gone into the different drivers, triple drivers, quad drivers, that type of thing. I would love to see headphone manufacturers maybe venture into that world a little bit more. Kennerton has done a few things that I've heard about, like they did a horn type thing, tweeter and things like that. Some other manufacturers could do some stuff like that. I think it'd be interesting to see what they come up with. Have I tried any speaker taps on any headphones? Looking to try it as I have a really good speaker amp and want to try it on some headphones. The only place that I did that was at a headphone show, and it wasn't, you know, obviously my setup. And that was with the Susvaras and the Abyss 1266 TCs. So yeah, I've seen it done before, but I never tried it. I don't have a good speaker amp to do that with. In my opinion, with high-end IEMs, you're paying for more advanced R&D, and at least with the good, serious manufacturers, whether it's worth it, once again, is entirely subjective. I absolutely, totally agree. I think that you are getting the better R&D. You're getting better actual components that are going into it. The implementation of it is a little bit better. Sometimes the build materials, things like that. So that's kind of part of the reason for the price tag. But at the same time, for the subtle differences in sound that you're going to get, does that warrant the price tag of buying something that's maybe $500 cheaper as if you wanted to do Chi-Fi or another vendor? I totally understand that, and that's subjective, and that's up to each and individual person. And I'm not going to judge you for it. I mean, if you want to spend $5,000 on a IEM, which there are some out there. From like what is it, the MMR or whatever. If you want to purchase those, go for it. You know, I mean, cool. I'm glad that you want to explore that, but for me, that's not really something that I'm interested in buying. Plus, I reviewed them, and they're not worth it, in my opinion. That's very, very true. As far as using speaker taps, depending on if you're going to use speaker taps, what headphone, because obviously you don't want to put it on something that's very easy to drive. You blow up your drivers very easily. Hey, welcome back, Dapper Brick. You got 10% battery. FH7, I haven't heard that, but that would probably be a good parking spot for an IEM. I would think that's about a $500 range. Tried the Deva in the 560s on the Technics SE A5 Mark II, and they sound great. Interesting. I'm surprised that the Deva took that. I would have thought that that would have kind of pushed that driver a little too much. The interesting thing for me is since we were talking about pricing, is there just has to be something that comes that just like totally wows me and pulls me away in order for me to actually go and purchase it. Like the Meze Empyrean, I heard it several times and it just was something that kept pulling at me, saying, you're going to get it, you're going to get it, you're going to get it, you need it, you need it. And a lot of times these higher ones are maybe like, I'm interested in it, I'd like to hear it, but I'm not like sold on it. You know, it's there's that fine line, and it's kind of hard to describe, but you do know when something is when you're going to have it, when you need it. You know, it's like you just can't get it out of your mind. Oh, that's interesting. Intuit thought that the Deva took the power. I don't honestly remember my review of the Deva. I think I did say it scaled better with it, but I wasn't sure. I didn't try it on taps. In my experience, communities that mostly host older audio files are a lot less toxic than Discord and YouTube and Headfires come to mind. Interesting. I think it kind of just depends on the host, for example, and also it kind of depends on how things are handled and discussed. So like, but then also there is a different approach based on age. I'll admit it, I'm 45 years old, and I do think differently than some of the youngers. No offense to anybody here. So I think that approaches do matter. But I do believe, truthfully, that in those communities that are a little bit more toxic that you're referencing, and I do know who you're referencing, it can be controlled and handled better by the host. And they can drive the conversations and can drive the tone of the conversation, and it wouldn't be as toxic. There's ways to handle it without it getting out of control. There's also a level of stubbornness in those communities that find less so in more. Yes, absolutely. That's true too. Some of us are a little, but you also get that in some of the other communities. It kind of depends on what you're talking about. Electrostats tend to be very revealing about the amplifier. I always power those off an adapter. That's true. Electrostats are very revealing. I would say that they are the most revealing headphones that I've heard. No echo, all good, Dave. Thank you. You like Instagram over Twitter. The only thing I use Twitter for is announcements and to post things to let you all know, hey, I'm going to be doing a live stream, or hey, this review is up on the website, things like that. I don't do anything on Twitter. Instagram, I do post some pictures over there occasionally. I need to get better at it. I actually use the YouTube community page quite a bit. You would run a modern stacks off a speaker taps? Interesting. The Mark II is ideal. I need one day. They aren't as available since quarantine. That's a bummer. I need to get into electrostats. You guys keep, every time I do a live stream, electrostats comes up. And so it's like the hint, I need to get into it. But it's so pricing expensive. I get the hint though. I really do. I'm curious also in regards to um, if you guys notice a difference, since we were talking about some of the toxicity and the things like that in the forums and stuff. Do you notice a difference in like the comments of the review? So if you watch a lot of reviewers, do you notice that the comments are different based on it, like how the fan base is for that particular reviewer? Do some reviewers get attacked more or corrected more than others, or agreeable? I'm just curious to see if you guys have ever noticed that. Get a vintage Stax SR202, which is low end for vintage, can fetch for $200. Okay, I'll look into those if I can find one. And then I'll have to get an Energizer. I'll take a look at that. Just like the choir, the more there are, fuller the sound. Wherever the case may be, if they sing awfully, then it's just fuller noise. Some principle for multi-driver. That's true. That is very true. I'm glad that you all joined me tonight. I actually been thinking about this topic of, is there differences in gears or differences in cables? Is there differences in approaches? And I'm glad that certain topics got mentioned. Also, the electrostat thing always interests me. Automotics are renowned for their detail and quality using just single drivers. That is very true. They're very, very good at it, actually. It really surprises me, especially the ER2s. They're extremely good for a single driver. But anyways, I am going to cut it short. It is going at 10 after 10 here on the east, and I have to get up early in the morning, so I am going to call it an evening. I want to thank everybody for joining me and for the discussions, and I just want you all to know that I do greatly appreciate each and every one of you, and I appreciate your feedback and your thoughts and the respect, and how that each one of you all, we can discuss whether to EQ, or if you hear differences in cables, or if you hear differences in DACs and amps and DAPs and all kinds of various things, and how that, whether or not we agree, we still understand that, hey, that's your opinion, we respect it, and let's all just enjoy the music and just enjoy everybody's journey together. That's what the key is to me, is hearing what you guys enjoy and hearing what you guys like, and then going and exploring it for myself and seeing if I enjoy it. Hopefully you do the same. Alrighty, well, I'm going to cut it short. You guys have a great night. Thank you for joining me. And we will do this again in a couple weeks when I get back into town. Thank you all. Have a good night.